Shlomo was very busy in arbitration. He dealt with labor disputes to settle arguments where people felt they were being deprived of something that they owed. And when he learned this part, he constantly compared it to what it is in the negotiation world, and how they look at it, and how the Torah is way above what is being done in the regular world. He was amazed, and it was very interesting for me to hear him expound on that, the comparison between what's going on in a regular court and how our Torah looks at all these halachas. But in spite of this handicap, he had a tremendous enthusiasm to learn. Whenever we had to make an arrangement, we were going to learn together, he was there. He schlepped himself into his little den, and he had the Sforim ready. There was an eagerness to understand the Gemara. He wouldn't let me get away with anything. It had to be completely pure, emistate. As I understand, I learned from him at that time, he was a man of highest integrity. He had a clarity of thought, and it was a pleasure, of course, to learn together short while. I'm going to tell you a little story about Hashkocha Pratis. Shlomo was niftar right after Tisha B'Av. A few days later, I had occasion to go to Eretz Yisrael together with my children to celebrate the Simcha there. And when we came there, we had heard about his Ptira. And it occurred to us, we have a little time before the Chasana. Okay, we'll go and make a shiva visit. So we decided in the spur of the moment to make a shiva visit. At that time, the Avelim, the Almona and the children were sitting in the room together, and they were reminiscing. They were reminiscing by looking at pictures of Shlomo's life. They saw a picture where I was learning with him at home. And at that moment, I entered the room. I came. I surprised them. Who would have thought of that? That I would come in at that moment and they're looking at the picture of me and not knowing even that I was in Eretz Yisrael? They were amazed. This was Hashkocha Pratis. I should come there at that moment. I want to say briefly just, may Hashem comfort his Almona, his wife, bring consolation, Chachama to all the children, brother, sister. And we want to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for letting us gain the inspiration for having had such a person of high caliber in our midst. Yehi Zichrei Baruch.
I'd like to ask Yitz Shlomo to sign the Duris card. I'll try to be very brief. I'm very, very glad to be here because we had my father, as you all know, with my mother, with tremendous siyata d'shmaya and Herculean effort, was living his last few months in Eretz Yisrael. And that was a wonderful, beautiful spus. But the fact remains that his whole life was spent here, in this city. And much of it, many decades, in this Kollel. And there was a hole. There was something missing. We went, there were beautiful, there were Hespedim, there was, Mr. Hirsch mentions, there were wonderful, wonderful little sparklings of Detroit, Mr. Hirsch coming in at that very moment. But we still weren't here. And it was and so when I heard that this event was being organized, I was very grateful, and I'm very, very eager to come and to be here with you, because that is something that people who knew him casually couldn't appreciate. When we were in Israel, we had to say very long, detailed hespedim, because people didn't completely know him. There have been people casually, he's been there back and forth. I don't feel that need here. I don't feel that I have to tell you about my father. You were here. You lived with him, you saw him, he lived with you, he sat over there. And so for that, I am extraordinarily grateful to the Kollel for hosting. He appreciated this place, he appreciated the people here, and he appreciated the mission of the Kollel. And he understood it, and he was part of it. From the beginning, from the 70s. So thank you for that. My uncle did a masterful job, I think, capturing many, many important themes and appreciations of my father. And I'm not going to repeat, I don't want to trouble you, to impose that on you. I do like to share one anecdote, perhaps. And it's maybe a little trivial, but I don't think so. At least not to me. My uncle mentioned different tekufas in life when you recognize, and then the Ace Zikna, there's a certain appreciation of the ephemeral nature of maybe other aspects of life. And this anecdote, I think, captures that and maybe even contradicts it slightly, but with my uncle's permission. When I was 16 years old, I was going to leave the city of Detroit for yeshiva in Long Beach. Our class by that time had started to dissipate to various yeshivas, and it was time. And we went on a tour, and we got to, and I ended up going to Long Beach. There had been, you look around the room, there's so many reminiscences. I see Mr. Tarabello over there, because Moshe Tarabello was there first, and that was the place where we were going to go. And then I started finding out about this place, Long Beach. And I fancied myself somewhat, cosmopolitan, interested in things. And they had a rule, no newspapers. No newspapers. And so I was outraged. And I went to my father and I said, what about the no newspaper thing? And I thought that he would be sympathetic, because he was very open and very curious, and he looked at things and he understood them and he explained them and he processed them. So I was expecting a little bit of empathy. And instead, what I got was, he was a very gentle person, so I got a laugh. And he said, Yitzchak, the world's going to do just fine without you knowing what's going on. And, okay, and that's what fast forward 35 or so years. And we have the things that are going on in Wisconsin with Scott Walker. And Scott Walker is taking on the municipal unions. And my father's expertise in all of those years was labor for municipal unions, government employees. And, you know, I've been following this, of course. And I went to my father and I said, so Dad, you know, I mean, Wisconsin's right it's the next state over. It's so similar. There are so many things. I said, so Dad, what do you think about what's going on with Scott Walker in the unions in Wisconsin? And he said, I'm not following. He said, my time for following those things is over. You know, when I said a hesped in Eretz Yisrael, I hadn't had necessarily that much time to process a lot of different things. This one hit me a couple of weeks later. It's the same conversation. There are tekufos. There are things that you do at different times. It's up. When you're in yeshiva, you're not necessarily following current events. I'm done with following union and labor issues now. I'm at a different point in my life. My life is now focused on